Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We're excited to have our friend, our coach, bringing freedom to potential, coaching for relevance, and so much more. Randy Swaim joining us here today to talk more about leadership, about his book, about his piloting days, about his service to our country, and about his, Hollywood movie. He's got a lot on his plate, but he's always here for us, here for you, and really inspiring to listen to. So if you haven't checked him out yet, now is the time. And of course, feel free to watch some of the last episodes. He has them on the website as well to get to know him further. Randy, say hello to everyone. How are you?
Hello, everybody. And I'll tell you what, Jill, it's just such a pleasure to always be here with you. I appreciate you, my friend.
Oh, ditto, sweetheart. What's in store for us today?
I'm going to bring a one little bit of an insight today that a lot of people uh, don't understand, but I will say this, that it's very aligned with my organizational maneuverability concept, but in one way, but it was brought out by two professional people in a book that they wrote. And it's a key thing that people need to sort of understand. And I'll kind of bring some of that out as we talk about it and everything. But uh, it's a relatively simple concept, but it's a good concept that people have to be aware of because a lot of people think differently in a negative way. And so it's an aspect that I'll sort of bring with this, and I'll mention the two authors of their book and everything, but it's they brought a concept that's very aligned with a lot of kind of what I look at and think and all that, but it's a key insight that people in our society need to be aware of, and so I'll just mention that when we get going.
Thank you. What did you have in mind for us today? What's happening in the world, in life? What are you going to inspire us about?
Well, what it is, it's very simple. And I will tell you this, that when you talk about this particular concept, it is applicable to every area that somebody is in, every area that people are working in and all that. It also, from my military background, kind of thing, it plays a key insight in the military aspects and all that kind of stuff, because it's a key aspect that a lot of people do not fully understand, but it's very critical. So if you want, I'll go ahead and start mentioning it and everything, but it deals with this one word called legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? The vast majority of people in our society even consider that something where they're getting pats on the back and they're getting applause and they're getting all of this sort of stuff from something that they did last year or 2 months ago, or whatever kind of thing, and what they don't understand is that is not legacy. Legacy is very different. And if you understand organizational maneuverability, but also if you understand strategic vision, the strategic vision is a key part of this, of where you're going. And you'll see what I'm talking about here in just a moment. So, like I said, a lot of people think of legacy as, well, you know what, if I did this, last year and everybody applauded me for it, okay, I got a legacy back there. No, you don't. That's not what legacy really is. And these two gentlemen, like I said, I'll mention their names again, Bill High and David Green. They are both CEOs, and they are also both co-authors for this book that is entitled The Legacy Life. And they brought truth about true legacy to it. And what I'll do is I'll bring just one key quote out to this, but it is so key and so critical to true legacy when somebody wants to have a legacy in what they're doing and things like that. And here's the quote: legacy is not what you leave behind, but what you set in motion for the future. And that is a key aspect of legacy. And the bottom line is legacy is not just about kind of something you did last year and somebody said thank you or whatever, kind of thing. That's not a legacy. A legacy is something that basically things are set in motion for the future so that, one of these days when you take your last breath and you're not here anymore, is that still going forward? That's legacy. And legacy is not nearly about the past of something where you wanted to kind of get the approval of something or whatever. I mean, if you did something good and all that, then yeah, you can get approval, but that's not legacy itself. Legacy is focused on setting something in motion that will continue to go into the motion and go into the future and make a legacy going forward. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. Like I said, I'll just requote their quote because it's exactly right. And it's very aligned with my concept of organizational maneuverability. Because not everything is rote academic. Not everything is just rote understandable kind of thing. But the bottom line is they both said that legacy is not what you leave behind, but what you set in motion for the future. And a lot of people, if their whole attention is trying to just get people talking about something they did last year, they think that's legacy, but it is not legacy because it doesn't make a difference going forward, really, in a lot of ways. And, legacy happens when something is formulated and something is brought into motion and it makes a huge difference in the future. That is true legacy. And you know what? That can happen if you're doing it right. That can happen even if you pass away and you're not here going forward. Because it's not just all about you. It's about what you're putting in motion for the future to make a dramatic, amazing difference. And it's after something like that that people will very often remember your name, at least, going forward and everything. But the bottom line is that's a key insight when you're talking about the concept of true legacy. And really, if you think about it, true leadership. It's a key concept that people need to understand. If their whole focus is on trying to talk about themselves and get everybody to just kind of share what you told them, about yourself or whatever, kind of thing, and that's all you're trying to do, guess what? That's narcissistic, it's arrogant, and it's self-interested, and it's not focused on legacy. But if you are doing something that basically sets in motion an insight or something for the future, and amazing things happen going forward, even though maybe you're not a direct part of it, possibly, guess what? That can be legacy. And that can be, if it's something that you initiated, that can be a legacy of yours, kind of thing. But it's just something to think about. A lot of people in a narcissistic society just want to kind of pat themselves on the back and talk about themselves, and that's it. Well, guess what? When you're talking about back then, that's not getting you there. Okay. If all you're doing is trying to tell people what to do going forward, guess what? You don't know whether that's going to truly work or not. And the legacy can happen if the process of going forward is such that even with unexpected, rapidly changing factors that come on scene that you didn't expect, you can still make dramatic success happen. And those are aspects of legacy that people don't really realize, because it's not just about, going something that was left behind back there in the past. That's not legacy, and it's not really any part of that. True legacy, if your team is wanting to create that, true legacy is what are you coordinating and what are you creating that can be set in motion for the future. even in challenging, like in organizational maneuverability, even in challenging, unexpected, uh, you know, factors or effects that come on scene. You know, has your legacy created something where you can make that happen still, even when something is very challenging and going on it and everything. Um, and so it's just something to think about. This is a key insight that they had in their book, and I just wanted to kind of bring that out for what we're talking about today. Is that, again, I'll just give you the quote. The title of the book is The Legacy Life. Again, Bill High and David Green are the two CEOs and the sort of the co-authors on it. But legacy is not what you leave behind, which is what a lot of people do. If they did something, good a year ago or whatever, they tend to try to keep focused on that and talk about it so they can get a pat on the back. It's not what you leave behind back there, but what you set in motion for the future. And what are you doing to be able to really make that happen? That is true legacy. And people have a sense of legacy for somebody when all of a sudden dramatic success happens that nobody expected, given the situations that were coming on scene, kind of thing. And that's what can make people go, oh, oh, wow, wow, wow. You know what? Yeah, kind of thing. And 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 the legacy can also happen when you're going forward in the future, and you've got it such that even when unexpected factors come on scene, you know how you can adapt as necessary, and you know how you can be aware of if those factors change a little bit and cause a challenge to what you're trying to accomplish and things like that. And so these are just a few concepts that, it's not, when you're talking about legacy, it's not just about you plotting yourself. It's not about you just talking about yourself from something you did a year ago or whatever, kind of thing. It's not just about you trying to call attention to yourself. That is not legacy. Legacy is when there are things that are set in motion for the future to give radical results that perhaps nobody realized. And that's a key aspect of legacy. It's not looking back into the past, but it's looking forward to set in motion for the future. And when you think about your strategic planning, your strategic vision, and all of that you need to have happen, those are some things that you need to be aware of. And also, just if you talk about the dopamine fix, which is the chemical that your brain releases to try to call attention to yourself and all that kind of stuff. If you feel the dopamine fix taking over, don't let it take over. Don't let it grasp you. You know, um, keep the future in vision on what you're trying to accomplish, not just what you want to accomplish academically, but how you're really going to get there. And do you have those motions that are going to be set in motion for the future for radical results? And that's where legacy comes from. Again, the key simple thing on this is that true legacy doesn't come from the past. It doesn't come from something that you did positively or whatever. Now, if you did something that saved some lives or something, okay, maybe that can be one small thing. But when it really comes down to it, that's just one thing. If that doesn't happen going forward, or if that doesn't happen making positive things going forward, then your legacy is not what you want it to be, possibly. And so it's just something to think about, that, again, legacy is not what you leave behind, but what you set in motion for the future. And that is a key aspect of it. People should not just be focused on maybe what they did a year ago, or what maybe a good grade they got in school or whatever, kind of thing. No, it's about clarity on the future. Where am I going? Where's our team going? And are we really going to get there? Because I'll tell you what, if all you do is you go with rote academic factors, you're not bringing this into play, because going forward, the factors can be a little bit different. The factors can change. Some unexpected factors that you didn't predict could be coming on scene, and you got to adapt and adjust to be ready to do that. But the bottom line is, if your team can do that effectively and reach radical results, guess what? That is what can leave a legacy, and and all that. So it's just something to think about when you're talking about this one aspect. That again, it's not uh, just an academic thing, but having very much clarity on going forward. Are you putting something in motion which is ready for the unexpected factors coming on scene? That if you're going forward strategically and a factor comes on that is one that you never expected, but you can assess, you can look at it, you can strategically apply, you can strategically adjust if you need to, and you can be successful. That's one example when you think about it sort of strategically in that picture. But the bottom line is, like I said, I just wanted to kind of leave that today, because keep in mind, and again, I'll just mention Bill High and David Green. They're the two CEOs and the authors that wrote The Legacy Life. And again, true legacy is not just how you call attention to yourself. No, it isn't. True legacy is not what you leave behind or what you try to call attention to yourself back then. True legacy, okay, is what you set in motion for the future. True legacy is when dramatically unexpected, successful results happen in ways that somebody didn't realize. And so it's just something to think about when you're talking about the organizational maneuverability, because this is very aligned with my organizational maneuverability concept, that that are just not purely, you know, educational or whatever, kind of thing, academic or anything, but you can make the right decisions even when something crazy is starting to happen. And if you think about, and I'll just share this just as a concept. Most of the people that probably are listening to this, you can look back at the military history of our country and and what we do and all that kind of stuff. But guess what? There are some commanders that had a real legacy in what they did in leading their soldiers in a combat arena or whatever. But you know what? They died long time ago. And you know what? The memory is still there. And so the legacy is sort of a key aspect about that. It's not just about you calling attention to something you did last year or whatever, but it's basically, are you putting things in there and setting them in motion for your future? Because like I said, and I mentioned this, the true legacy, if it's a true legacy, it outlasts your existence. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. And when I, when I take my last breath and close my eyes for the final time, I hope that there's a few things out there that are part of what I did. Does that mean I got to call attention to it? No. But the legacy is way beyond just kind of what you're trying to do with that. So it's just something to think about on that. It's bigger and it's more real and more amazing than most people realize. And again, it's a great quote from Bill High and David Green on that, about the definition of that. So they totally have my compliments, because it's very aligned with kind of what I bring and all that kind of stuff. So so it's a key thing that a lot of people have to get away from just the little academic thing where they're kind of calling attention to themselves and all. No, don't do that. And that's not bringing a legacy to it.
Thank you. Thank you. And legacy, it's such a word. You're right. I never think about it. You think about legacy is what the person leaves behind in their life, what they've accomplished, what they did. Never really thought about it this way, but you're right. We should be living our legacy in a sense and doing all those things as we go. Yeah, that's legacy too. Yeah.
And so much so that even after you take your last breath and you're no longer here, those factors can still be at play going forward. In that case, it's a real legacy because it's still going there. It's still going forward. And, you may have some other people that take the strategy of that and they tweak it and adjust it a little bit because of maybe the time changing and factors changing and stuff like that. But you know what? You can still be a part of that legacy on it because it's a lot of things like that can change. But it's a key aspect about legacy because, again, if their whole focus is just on trying to call attention to themselves, that's not it. And if they're going backwards and they're just going back to sometime a year ago or whatever that I did this or whatever, and their whole focus is on just trying to get people to pat them on the back, that's not true legacy. True legacy, and I'll share this with you too. This is very true in this, but true legacy is not about what you tell about yourself, even if it's going forward. No, true legacy is what people experience going forward and what people are seeing going forward, even if you're not a part of it. And if and it's like I say, it's not just somebody calling attention to themselves, but it's like, if your legacy is to kind of, build some success there, then you can do that. No two ways about it.
Well, thank you so much. We still got 3 more minutes left. And in
Need
closing
to come back and
today,
call attention to you.
oh, there
Now,
you go. I'm sorry. I thought I lost
are,
you. I hate this delay. I'm
oh
so
no,
sorry. I said we got 3 more minutes left. Sorry about that. Our
oh,
connection
okay.
today is not good. So how did you want to
Okay.
kind of end off? Because we do still have just a few minutes.
Well, I tell you what, well, I know we're getting close to it, but I will just say this, that's just what I wanted to bring this time because this aspect about true legacy is not about looking behind. It's about what you're putting in motion for going forward into the future. And that's something that people need to be thinking about. We all do. And we need to do that in our families. We need to do that in our teams at work and things like that and everything. And but that's a key insight about legacy that many people don't even think about. But you know what? They should, because that's true. And
Aw.
it's just been an honor to be here with you as always, Jill. I always appreciate you being here, my friend, and being here with you. And we'll look forward to perhaps the next one.
Aw, thank you. I appreciate that. Always appreciate it. How do we reach out to you, Randy?
Okay. As you know, you can reach out if somebody wants to, they can reach out to my website, coachingforrelevance.com. And if you go down to the bottom of the homepage, basically there's a thing there that has my cell phone number on it and my email. And you've heard me say this a number of times, but if they don't have to worry about me kind of giving a rote sales pitch to them when they call. Now, if they have a need, yeah, we'll come up with that. But the bottom line is, if all they want to do is just have a chat, they can do that.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for being here. Sorry
Sounds
for our misconnection, but I love you and can't wait to chat again next week, Randy. Thank you so much.
Well, I'll tell you what, I love you too, my friend, and I just really appreciate you here, and we'll look forward to seeing you
Ditto.
next week.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.